was, right? I want to know the toughest man on the planet is. That's what we're going to find out.
Brendan, it's me, Pop.
What are you doing here?
Tommy's back.
Did he say if he wants to see me?
I'm proud of you, Tommy. What you did for that kid in the tank.
What was I supposed to do, let him drown?
Tommy Reardon, you saved my life.
Look, Brendan, the bank has got to go by the new appraisal figures. You're upside down on your mortgage.
How much do you need? I didn't come in for long, Frank. I was hoping that you would train me. Are you serious?
Do it!
Hi everyone, it's Dalton Lynne. Today's review is going to be another movie review. I may rotate movie and book reviews instead of just doing one particular type. We'll see. I might also incorporate TV shows. Just depends what's going on. So today's movie review is going to be the movie Warrior. It came out in 2011, and it stars Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy, Nick Nolte, Jennifer Morrison, and Frank Grillo. And Hardy plays Tommy Conlon. He is an ex-Marine who is haunted by a tragic past, and he returns to his hometown of Pittsburgh. And eventually he asks his father, Patty, played by Nick Nolte, who is a recovered alcoholic, to be his coach again. He had been his coach before when he was younger in MMA fighting. And there is a tournament that's coming up, and it's got this huge purse as the reward. It's like the biggest, I think, supposed to be the biggest purse ever in the history of MMA fighting or something like that. So he asked his father to coach him because he's got his eyes set on that prize. We also get to see what's going on with his brother Brendan, who is played by Joel Edgerton. Now, Brendan had been an MMA fighter as well, but he quit fighting for his wife because she didn't like to see him keep getting beaten up and broken and in the hospital and things like that. So he, since he quit fighting, he became a public school teacher. But he and his wife are having trouble making ends meet. Their house is about to go on foreclosure. They have these medical bills for one of their children that are just almost too much for them to handle. Their child has a heart condition, I believe. So they're struggling financially. So without his wife's knowledge, Brendan starts to do amateur fighting on the side to make some extra money to help support his family. And eventually, what he does is he goes to his friend Frank, who's played by Frank Grillo. I believe this guy may have been his coach too in the past, but anyway, he goes back to him. He asks him to help coach him some more so that he can get better at his game and move beyond the amateur aspect of his fighting so he can make more money. So the relationship between Brendan and Tommy and Patty, it is very strained. It's pretty much broken because of what happened in their past. Patty had been a raging alcoholic. It split the family apart. It just caused all sorts of turmoil. The brothers don't speak anymore. They hardly even really speak with their father, even though Tommy is having his father coach him. He makes it very clear he doesn't want the relationship to be anything beyond that. He knew he's a good coach. He wants him to coach him. That's it. Don't be a dad to me. That kind of thing. So it's a very fractured relationship going on with the three members in this family. A lot of bad feelings between them. The two brothers are also on the outs because when the mother left, Tommy went with her. Brendan stayed behind because at that point he was in a serious relationship with his girlfriend, who then became his wife. So Tommy has a lot of resentment towards Brendan for that. And of course, resentment towards his father because of everything his father had done that drove the family apart. At any rate, it ends up that Brendan makes it to this fight with the big prize. And the trailer makes it very clear that Brendan's this underdog sort of fighter and something like that. But it becomes obvious that what's going to happen is these two brothers are going to end up on a collision course in the ring for the final fight. So that's the basis for the story. That's what it's about. And my thoughts, when I first saw Warrior, it was shortly after my grandfather had died. And my grandfather, the one I mentioned in the other movie review, who suffered from Alzheimer's. So family was in town, and one of my brothers introduced us to the movie. I had seen the reviews for it had heard it was good, but it was just kind of meh on the whole thing. So was never really interested to watch it. But we all sat down, we watched it, and oh man, wow. I don't know if it was because of what was going on at the time with the death of my grandfather, and so it was just kind of very sad moment in my life. And this movie it really just pulled on all the right heartstrings for me. There was so much about it that got everything right. So right off the bat, I'm going to start with my ratings, and you probably can tell where I'm going to go with this. For the story, I'm giving it an absolute 5. It's got an excellent plot, excellent characters, excellent storytelling. There were a few moments that I felt were a little bit cheesy and kind of unnecessary. For instance, the whole part about the kids in Brendan's class, and they wanted the school to broadcast the fight on a screen or whatever so the school could see it, and their efforts to be able to make that happen. That was that felt not really, it didn't really, it just felt like extra fluff that didn't need to be there. But other than that, I really have no complaints at all about this movie. I think it had the right combination of what makes for a good drama and the right amount of action to keep things moving at a good pace so you don't feel like you're just kind of sitting there, nothing's going on. Performance, solid 5. Again, goodness, nothing but great things to say about the 3 main cast members, Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton, Nick Nolte. They played their parts so convincingly that their emotions felt almost like a tangible thing. The family drama was just heartbreaking. And I think it's because most of us have experienced something similar to what these people went through, whether it's just separation, divorce, abuse, either mentally or physically, and a loved one dealing with addiction, seeing how families can be torn apart by things like this, often irreparably, because of how everyone's lives are just so affected. And sometimes the pieces are just shattered so much and so hard, you just can't put it back into place. And it was just so sad to witness because it just felt so real. Not just because of how tragic it is on a human level, but also because many of us can identify with the feelings that these people are going through. Nick Nolte was nominated for an Oscar for his performance in this movie, and I personally think he should have won. I don't know how much of that is my bias for this film talking, but his performance was it was very touching. You have to see it to understand what I'm talking about, but he played with such emotion. You could just see it on his face. He didn't even really have to say much, just his eyes conveyed everything. This remorse that he had for the division that he had caused in his family, and he can't go back and fix it. And you can just see that it tears him apart, and you really feel for him because of that. And Hardy and Edgerton, also with excellent performances. You really feel very bad for these characters, and knowing their background, the dysfunctional relationship they have, and you feel this sense of dread leading up to the final confrontation they're going to have in the ring. Frank Grillo also delivered a really good performance as well. When I watched it, I actually thought he looked familiar. I thought he had been someone I saw in the ring, maybe a fighter or a coach. And then I realized later it was because I'd actually just seen him in a TV show. He really wasn't an MMA fighter or coach or anything. But speaking of that, he is in a show on DirecTV that deals with MMA stuff. I've heard it's really good, but I haven't checked it out yet. Jennifer Morrison, she pulled out a solid performance as the part of Brendan's wife. It really wasn't anything super spectacular or on the same emotional scale as what the 3 main actors did, but it was still good for what it was as a supporting cast member. So overall, clearly, it's going to be a 5. I loved this movie so much that it quickly became one of my top favorites because everything worked so well together, and the final fight scene with the 2 brothers, oh man. It was one of the most powerful, gut-wrenching, emotionally moving things I've seen on screen. And just that alone is enough to make the whole film worth it. So my final thoughts are, while I typically do enjoy action films, I would pick an action movie over a chick flick any day. But movies about boxing or fighting, things like that, they're not really something that I would generally gravitate toward. But I'm really glad I did with this one. It was worth it. And that's my thoughts on the movie Warrior. I know it's a few years old, but it was just something I felt like I wanted to talk about. And if any of you guys have any thoughts you want to share about the movie or any other recommendations for something similar that's just as good, though I don't know of any sort of film that would come close to being as good as this one was for me, just pop a comment down below. And that's it. Bye.